All right, so we're kind of getting on the downhill here on this chapter. So we're going to talk here about something called list comprehensions. Now, previously, we've talked about copying lists already, where you create a new empty list, use a for loop, or you create a new empty list and concatenate the old list. We also have a interesting functionality in Python called list comprehensions. It's very much like copying, but it obviously has different terminology here. So again, a list comprehension, here's the definition: a concise expression that creates a new list by iterating over the elements of an existing list. So we can concatenate on, we can kind of do that in 1 or 2 lines. List comprehensions reduces it down to a sort of single line. Okay, so a list comprehension is functionality that sort of reduces the entire list copying process to a single line. Okay, so the following code uses a for loop to make a copy of a list. We've seen this before. So we have list 1, we have list 2 for item in list 1, list 2.append item. Okay, so we can see that that's sort of 4 lines of code at that point. Now the following code uses a list comprehension to make a copy of a list. So obviously we have the list 1, and then we create list 2, item for item in list 1. And there we go. We've actually done it in 2 lines rather than 4. Obviously, both of them you have to create the list, so we could subtract that. But in the first one, you have 3 lines, which you have list 2 for item in list 1 and list 2.append. That's 3 lines. In the second, you just have list 2 equals item for item in list 1. So it's basically combining a for loop inside of the creation of a list. Okay, so it's a very, very quick and effective way of actually creating these list comprehensions. So kind of diving a little bit deeper, obviously list 2 here is the name of the list that you're going to give it. It could be names, it could be numbers, it could be first names, it could be last names, it could be for, any sort of a name that you decide to give it. We have the result expression, okay, and then the iteration expression. So 2 parts of this list comprehension. We have the result expression and the iteration expression. Now the iteration expression is what obviously it says it is. It's a iteration over the list for item in list 1, and then you have item for item in list 1. So we're going to grab on the first iteration, we're going to grab the first element out of list 1, so it'd be at 0. We're going to put it in item, and then we're going to put that back into item. Now, the reason why this is important is we can actually do different things to the list as we're using comprehensions, okay? And I'll kind of show you this a little bit further as we move forward. So the iteration expression works just like a for loop. Iterates over the elements of list 1. Each time it iterates, the target variable item is assigned the value of the element. Okay, and at the end of each iteration, the value of the result expression is appended to the new list. Okay, so this is what is appended to the new list. This is the target variable. Okay, and the target variable and the result expression are directly connected. So again, to kind of ram that home, so what happens is we have list 1, so we're going to start with 1. Okay, so we're going to grab 1, we're going to put it in item, and then we're going to do 1 raised to 2, so 1 times 1, which is 1. Okay, so then we're going to append 1. Okay, so then the second iteration, we're going to grab the 1, so the second element, the 1 index, we're going to pull that out, we're going to put it into the target variable, and then we're going to append it to the list by squaring it, so it'd be 2 times 2. Okay, 3 times 3, 4 times 4. What you notice is this holds the target, the element, right, the value from the list. This does something to it before it goes into the list. Okay, so you can modify that list as you're moving through it. So again, in terms of strings and length, what we can do is we have a string list, wink and blink and a nod, okay? And then we can do a length list, so we're going to grab the lengths of each of these and put it into this new length list. So for S and string list, we're going to just iterate through. We're going to call it S. Okay, so winking is an S, and then blinking is an S, and then nod is an S, okay? And then the result expression, this time we're actually doing the length function before it's added to the list. So essentially what we get is 6, 7, and 3. So this has a length of 6, this has a length of 7, and this has a length of 3. Okay, so you can also do an if clause in a list comprehension to select only certain elements when you're processing a list. So, if it's divisible by 2, if it's divisible by 3, if n is less than 10, in this particular example. So what we have here is we have list 1, list 2. For n in list 1, if n is less than 10, then we're going to append it, right? So list 1, we're going to grab 1. If 1 is less than 10, we're going to append it, so we're going to add 1. 12 is not less than 10, so we're not going to append it. 2 is less than 10, then we're going to append it. 20 is not less than 2, so we're not going to append it. 3 is less than 10, so we're going to append it, so on and so forth. So that's the way this works. Now, in a list comprehension, we can actually do item for item in list 1 if item is less than 10. Okay, so we're breaking this down to the iteration expression for item in list 1. Okay, so it's just like a for loop. We're going to append by doing nothing, right? So we're not squaring it, we're not adding anything to it, and we're only going to append it if it is less than 10, okay? So again, we can even go further with this, and you can see exactly what we're going to get, which is kind of what I spelled out to you. So we're going to get 1, 2, 3, and 4 because those are the only elements in the list that are actually below 10. Okay, so let's go ahead and mess around here a little bit with these list comprehensions. So coming back over to this chapter7.py file, what we're going to do is we're kind of going to get rid of a lot of these functions so we can just mess with list comprehensions briefly. All right, so I have a main method here. So let's go ahead and just create a list. Let's go ahead and call this list nums. And we're going to do something a little bit different. We've been creating lists just by sort of adding numbers and sort of building it manually. But we're going to mess around with range here for a second. Let's see if we can't create a function using the range, create a list using the range function. Now, it would seem that you would maybe do this like this, right? So range generates some sort of a iterable object, right? And that seems like that would work. It's not throwing any errors, nothing is wrong. But as you can see, if I go ahead and write my code like this, it's not exactly what we would expect. It just prints out range. It prints out that thing that I have there and doesn't really do anything. Now, maybe if we enclose this in square brackets or square braces, that would change things here. Let me get rid of that. There we go. If we run it, maybe that'll fix it. Not really. It just gives us sort of the same thing. So the secret to this is you need to be able to use something called the unpacking operator. And the unpacking operator is basically just star, essentially. So I can actually put star at the beginning of this. And if I put star at the beginning of this, now when I run it, I actually get some sort of a sequence of values. Okay? So now I can actually go to, I don't know, like 67 or something like that. We'll see what we got. Okay, so we have some numbers. Let's go up further than that. Let's go to 112 and see what we get. There we go. We got a pretty good set of numbers there. And again, we're just using this special unpacking operator. We're using range to generate a set of numbers, and then I'm just using some arbitrary numbers there. Okay, so we have that set created. And now we want to mess around with this concept of list comprehensions. Okay, so we have that list. It's called numbers. So let's try to just do a really, really, really basic list comprehension example. Okay, so we want to copy this into nums2. So we're just going to go ahead and give it a new name, and then we're going to use the list comprehensions methodology. So obviously it's a list, so it's going to use square brackets. Square brackets, square brackets. Make sure that you memorize that, or square braces. And then the way that we do this is, if we're going to do it directly from the book, we're going to do item for item in nums. Okay, so that's the name of the list that we're actually iterating. And then what we're going to do is we're going to print out nums2 and make sure that it is the same. Actually, we'll print out nums1 and nums2, make sure they are the same. All right, so let's go ahead and run this, make sure that we have 2 of the same set. And there we go. We have 2 of the exact same set using the list comprehension. Now let's imagine we're just creating a doubling function. So we'll call it nums double. Okay, so we want to double every single one of these items. Well, we can actually just multiply that times 2. And now whenever I put that out, we're getting nums2 here because I didn't rename that. There we go. Now when I go ahead and run it, I have 2 times 2 is 4, 7 times 2 is 14, 12 times 2 is 24, so on and so forth. So I have a doubling function. Now if I want to do the exponentiation function, which we saw in the slides, I can do the same thing, and you can see the exponentiation goes up really, really, really well. Okay, so now we can see that we can do things with these items and sort of count them up. Now, what's cool is we also have this if clause, right? So let's imagine we just want to go ahead and add these items while they're below some sort of a threshold. So we can use the if keyword, and we can say while item is less than, 50. Okay, so we can go ahead and change the way that this sort of works, give a condition to it, and we can now see that we only go up, we only exponentiate the values until they go up to less than 50. Okay, so 2 to 4, 7 to 4 to 9, so on and so forth, so on and so forth, until we get to 2209. All right, so that's sort of the way these list comprehensions work. Again, you can use those all you want to. I encourage you to play around with those as much as you can just to sort of get comfortable with using the list comprehensions. They're a very efficient and fast way to sort of create copies and modify lists and do different numeric things with those. All right, so we're going to take a little break here. We're going to come back on the other side, and we're going to go ahead and finish this thing out with some two-dimensional lists and some tuples.